This episode is brought to you by adamandeve.com. For 50% off almost any item, free shipping, and a free gift, use promo code MULTI at checkout.
People, a lot of times, they talk about that feeling of being enough. Like, why am I not enough for him? Or why am I not enough for them? And the thing about being enough is that you don't have to be everything to be enough.
If you're happy with the same old ways of dating,
if you enjoy sucking at communication,
and you have no desire to improve your romantic life, then our podcast might not be for you.
But if you want some out-of-the-box ideas to deepen your current relationships,
broaden your sexual horizons,
develop a better understanding of yourself,
or learn more about non-monogamy,
then you've come to the right place. I'm Jase.
I'm Emily.
And I'm Dedeker.
And this is the Multiamory podcast.
Songs I know I did, forcing me to form myself to fit.
On this episode of the Multiamory podcast, we're talking about mono-poly relationships. We get asked a lot about whether it's possible for a monogamous person and a polyamorous person to have a happy and functioning relationship. So to answer that question, today we have special guest Phoebe Phillips, also known as Phi, as a guest on our show to really get into all of this. Phoebe Phillips is a relationship blogger based in Los Angeles. She chronicles her thoughts and experiences as a self-described monomuggle, or a monogamous person in a polyamorous relationship, at polyamoring.blog. She also created Monocorn Sanctuary, a group specifically aimed to offer support to people who are monogamous and are dating a polyamorous partner.
Awesome. So thank you so much for being here, Phi. We're really, really excited to have you on the show. The first thing that we wanted to get to was the age-old question. I think the thing that a lot of people wonder, what they ask themselves, which is, can monopoly relationships actually work? And how do two people who have like these really different relationship structures, how do they make their relationship together feel equanimous? How do they make it feel fair when they're not each dating multiple people?
So thanks for inviting me to come on. Yes, it can work. The thing is to keep in mind that just because it works for one group of people or a pair of people doesn't mean it's going to work for everyone. Just because any relationship works with one person doesn't mean that person is able to be in a relationship with anybody they want to be in a relationship with. Mm-hmm. It's really specific. There is a difference, I think, between being fair and being even. I believe in being fair. If I want to date other people, I can date other people. He's not stopping me. My decision to not date other people is purely my decision, and that's what's fair. I have the same opportunity to do whatever I want that he does. What's even is, he's dating 3 people, so I have to date 3 people. That's not really fair.
Right.
I think that comes up a lot, even just within polyamorous relationships, that idea of like even versus fair. Yeah, definitely.
I think a lot of the stuff that comes up specifically in mono and poly relationships, it works the same way in just poly and poly relationships. It's just about the individual couple, whether my partner's other things that he does has to do with work or a hobby or whatever. Just other relationships are other aspects of his life that aren't about me. And I am comfortable with a person that I love having other things that they do that aren't about me. I don't have to be the center of everybody's universe. I mean, the world might be a better place if I were, but I don't have to be.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I'm taking just like a brief detour right out the gate here is, so you've been, the monogamous side in this relationship for a couple of years now, right?
Yeah, about 3 years in September. So.
And if I recall correctly from listening to you speak, you did have a period where you did kind of try dating other people, and you did try that on for size to see how that was.
Did.
Can you just briefly just talk a little bit about that experience for you, that journey for you?
So the idea of ethical non-monogamy as the umbrella term, that's not brand new to me. When I was say teenager, but when I was young, I dated a lot of people simultaneously. They all knew that they all existed, but I didn't really have that strong emotional connection with any one of them. The first time I fell in love, I stopped wanting to be with anybody else. That just happened for me. So I think that I just might be wired that way. I am open to the possibility that that can change at some point. I have tried to date other people. I don't feel this draw to do it. So the way that I am right now is just, if it happens, it happens. I'm not going to try and sabotage. Like, I'm not going to be like, nope, I don't date other people. If somebody inspires me to want to start dating someone else, I'm all for it. But it's just, so far, when I'm in love with someone, I really have no interest in doing things with anybody else.
Yeah, so I guess it kind of touching on that a little bit. This was jumping back to where we were before. Do you think that it is possible for two people to come into a relationship and maintain like the styles that they feel they're more accustomed to, even if they are like really vastly different from their partners? And with that, do you think that there are specific things that those people need to work on in order to like maintain a healthy relationship structure? And is it different from a normal like monogamous relationship or I guess normal polyamorous relationship?
Yeah. One of the things, yes, it's totally possible, because if you think about it, everything I need in my relationship, for me as I say monoamorous because I distinguish between the monogamous meaning marriage, and I'm not into marriage. So monoamorous, just like you're polyamorous.
Right.
So as a monoamorous person, what do I want in my relationship? I want like an emotional commitment. I want to, have that one-on-one feeling with a partner when I'm with this partner. I have that with him. Just the fact that he has that with other people does not take it away from what I have with him. So it's totally possible for me to get what I need in a relationship and for him to continue getting whatever it is he wants or needs from his multiple relationships. There are things that I think that these things help in poly plus poly relationships and mono plus poly relationships. One really specific one is the concept of the ownership of time. I have to accept that his time belongs to him, and I don't own it. Just because he sees me every Tuesday and Friday night does not mean that I own his Tuesday night. It's not my Tuesday night. It's still his. My Tuesday night is what I do with myself on Tuesday. I don't have other people I'm dating, and so generally speaking, if he's available, I want to see him. But he has other things going on in his life, and sometimes I have work things that come up or family things that come up that might interfere with it too. So the idea that everyone is responsible for their own time, but also for being respectful that if you've made plans with someone else, you don't cancel them because something else came up that you'd rather do, unless it's an emergency or you just completely unavoidable. You stick to the commitments that you made. Another thing that on the mono side really helped me with that specifically was I don't hold off on making plans with people to see if he's going to come through for me. Like, somebody wants to do something on Saturday, but maybe my boyfriend wants to do something on Saturday. I'm going to wait and see.
Oh, man.
Sure.
I make my plans. If he's not on the calendar, I have no reasonable expectation that we're going to have a date on that day. I make my plans and I commit to my friends. Even if after the fact, he says, hey, my plans with so-and-so fell through. Do you want to hang out? I'll be like, well, I've already made a commitment to someone. So I have to be as respectful of my friends and my other commitments as I want him to be of the commitments he makes with me.
Interesting.
I feel like that's huge, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I know that for a lot of people first opening up relationships or even just in monogamous dating at all, there's so much of that like, I can't make any plans with anyone until I check in and make sure that my romantic partner isn't free or doesn't want to hang out. Yeah, that's so huge, that just kind of, taking ownership of that and also prioritizing the other things you have in your life besides just that one relationship.
Well, I feel like I see a version of this in, people come to me and they're like, oh my God, like 2 partners at once? Like, wow, like how does anyone have the time for that? Or like, gosh, I can't even imagine it where, well, but I think it's more of like people often come with this assumption of like, okay, I think of what a monogamous relationship looks like, and that is spending all your time together, all as much possible free time as you have. And so that's just times 2. And like, whoa, really? Like there's not enough hours in a day. When it's like, well, no, really in my life, it's a lot more back and forth, a lot more negotiation, like the times when I was living in cities where all my partners were there at the same time, it's a lot of, certain days of the week or switching off, and now it's more of like chunks of time kind of alternate. And so I think it's really interesting that on your side, on the, kind of, even though you feel like you have this more monogamous approach, it's still maintaining that of like, no, like my time is still my own. And like, yes, of course I want to spend time with my partner and I have a drive to spend time with my partner, but there's still this separation there, which is kind of what makes it work, I think is really interesting.
I think it's someone I've said it before. I'm a recovering codependent, so
aren't we all?
As someone who used to be in a monogamous marriage where it was so codependent, and we were, everything was about each other. Even, it was a mess. But anyway, my husband, when he passed away, that's, people who follow me generally know that, but brand new people, hi, I'm a widow. So he passed away 4 years ago, and suddenly like the worst nightmare happened, right? I went from my entire life was about this one person to who am I? What do I do? What do I like that's not about him? And that's kind of what started this whole journey for me. I sort of re-embraced from when I was younger. I used to be like really into kink stuff in the kink community, and I came back out into the kink community and found, surprise, everybody's polyamorous in the kink community. So it's like, I want to find a way to like deal with this. So, I had several attempts at dating polyamorous people before I met my current partner. And what I learned is that not everyone does poly the same way. And I am not compatible with most of the ways people do polyamory. I am compatible with this specific way. And when I was able to let go of that need to be everyone's perfect partner and just find the partner that made sense with the version of me that exists right now, it kind of, everything opened up for me. And it was like, I can do this. I used to like have blogs about, I will never date poly again. I've tried this. It's awful. I was like the big like poster child for monogamy. I was like, nope, never again. But no, as it turns out, it can totally work if you find the right balance.
Gosh, that's like really beautiful.
It seems like, yeah, it seems very like relationship anarchy.
Yeah.
Like there are a lot of lessons from polyamory that you have taken and that help you like thrive in the relationship that you're currently in, but also you don't have that entitlement factor. You're not like on this relationship escalator with this person. Like you're creating the type of relationship that you want, and it just so happens that it is a monopoly relationship. Yep. But yeah, I think that's really awesome. That's like the right way to do it.
Yeah, I think when you had your episode on relationship anarchy, I was like, well, so if that's me, like I am, I'm deciding what my relationships mean to me, just because it kind of looks to people like what they're used to seeing. It's not the same. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So related to all of these things, I guess first of all, I thought it was really interesting what you said about how, you when you were younger, dated lots of people, and then when you first fell in love, you just lost all the interest in dating anyone else or doing anything with anyone else. That I feel like that is so much the like fairy tale narrative that everyone is told is going to happen, and for most people isn't like that. Or I would say at least a lot of people, if not most people, doesn't work that way. And you were saying, well, maybe I'm just wired this way. I feel like it just made me think that so many people, either they do feel that, and if their partner doesn't, it's like, oh, well, you're not as in love with me as I am with you. Yeah. Or if they themselves don't feel it, but they're trying to force themselves to feel that way, right? It's like, oh, well, maybe I'm not actually in love or something like that.
Yeah, I think society does us all a disservice by setting this ideal for us all that not everyone's going to fit into. The fact is, I met someone, fell in love, and didn't feel like I needed to have anybody else in my life romantically. It doesn't bother me that person still wants to have other people in his life romantically. Like he's wired in a different way than I am. And I accept that. There was a time when I was very, very young. I kind of remember this happening when I was walking across the schoolyard in elementary school. And the subject of cheating had come up. This might have been like the Clinton years. So the subject of cheating had come up. And I remember thinking, well, if the other partner knows about it and they're okay with it, is it really cheating? And so even way back then, like the concept of polyamory, the concept of ethical non-monogamy was like, yeah, that makes logical sense. Like it's not cheating if your partner knows and is cool with it. So I've always had that. So just when I met someone and fell in love and didn't want to be with anyone else, that was my decision to not want to be with anyone else. If he had told me, and he did the night he proposed, my husband had asked me, you know, because I had a lot of sexual experience and he had not had quite so much sexual experience. And he asked, like, do you think like once we're married, would you be comfortable with me ever doing something with someone else? And I was, I thought about it for a while and I was like, yeah, I think that down the line, if that's something you want to do, we can definitely talk about it. I said, there's certain people that I would be probably comfortable with you doing that with because I know them and I know they'd be cool with it. And, but at the same time, I was like, but if you're not having sex with me, I don't want you having sex with anybody else. Like, I still need to get my needs met.
Right. Wait, he whipped out that question the night he proposed to you?
Before he proposed.
Oh, before he proposed. Okay.
Yeah, so we were at dinner and he brings this up because he was like questioning, like, is this the end for me? And
okay, wait, hang on. Sorry. I'm getting into the weeds on this one. Was it like right before he proposed or like a day before he proposed? No. It just seems like such a funny image.
We had dinner. So it was like a short version of the story. We had dinner. We were in London. He kept trying to get me afterwards. We got back to the hotel. Well, it was a flat that we'd rented. And I was in pajamas. We were watching Britain's Got Talent on TV. It was raining out. He kept trying to get me to go out for a walk. And I didn't want to go out for a walk because I'm super lazy. And I was already in pajamas. He's like, oh, come on, let's go for a walk. It's really nice. It's really nice out. So finally, like in my pajama shirt, I put on a pair of jeans, grabbed a jacket, went like shoes with no socks, and we started walking and he kept going, low and a little farther, and we got to Westminster Bridge and we're standing there overlooking the water. There's not a soul in sight, and the Big Ben strikes midnight and I turn around and he's down on one knee. So it was like hours later.
Got it.
But he planned this all along. So it was very romantic. Every time I see Big Ben and I'm like, oh, that's where that happened.
That's great.
I think as a weird aside, it's possible that because of my experience as a widow, he's not my ex-husband. We didn't have a contentious divorce. I still have love in my heart for this person. He's just not physically here. Yeah. So I think I can understand the concept of loving two people simultaneously.
Interesting.
I just can't understand how y'all do the time thing. But but I get you can love more than one person at once. It makes total sense to me. It's just that I then don't want to deal with the logistics.
Right. Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. So I'd love to go back now to, so you created the Monocorn Sanctuary, which is this support group for the monogamous half of monopoly couples, and you also have on polyamoring on your blog. You also talk on that subject, and people reach out to you. And so I guess what I'm wondering about is, so not just in your personal experience, but from what you've seen with other people and kind of collecting that experience. would you be able to give any sort of advice about how someone would tell if monopoly could be a setup that would work for them? Or is that just sort of the like, well, one of us just actually isn't comfortable with polyamory, so we're going to try this instead? Or that we just want different things and we're going to do this like because we love each other so much. We get this excuse so often of like, I'm going to do a relationship that doesn't make me happy because we love each other so much. Like, how do you tell that it's not one of those two things, or if it is something that could work?
Yeah. So the genesis of the Monocorn Sanctuaries, I joined a couple of different polyamory groups on Facebook, and not too long after I joined them, the moderator teams asked me to join as a moderator on those groups. And I was looking for one where it was just the mono halves of these relationships, because a lot of times we have our things that we want to vent about, but we don't fit with the straight up monogamy group. We don't fit straight up with the polyamory group. We're somewhere like straddling both and not really fitting into either one. I was like, where is this place for me? And I found a group that existed, but found that it was mostly just people complaining about polyamory. And I was like, this doesn't feel right. Like, I don't hate polyamory. I just, occasionally want to gripe about something. That doesn't mean I hate it, So I started it, and it's grown. It's got like, I don't even know how many people in it now. And it's a space for people who either are they're the mono people in relationships with poly people, but they're happy about it, accepting of it, comfortable with it, or they want to learn to be happy, accepting, and comfortable with it. They don't want to just blame polyamory for all of their problems, so that they never have to face up to the fact that sometimes those problems come from within. If you can be one of those people who says, I want to be okay with this, then there's a really good chance that you at some point can be okay with this. But if you just want to find like a scapegoat, like the entire concept of non-monogamy, like that, it's very likely you're not ever going to find that place where you can be happy and fulfilled in this relationship. So, it's not for everyone. Polymono is not going to work for everybody. But if you want it to, if you're willing to do the self-work, and it's not just the mono person that has to do this, by the way. I don't want poly people thinking definitely. Like, we got to take all of... They got to deal with some stuff on their own too. It's about finding that balance between the two, where you're both realizing you're both getting your needs met with each other, but you're not. That was the big one for me. People a lot of times they talk about that feeling of being enough. Like why am I not enough for him, or why am I not enough for them? And the thing about being enough is that you don't have to be everything to be enough. That was my big right. But the other part was when my partner and I were first kind of negotiating, how are we going to do this thing? Because we started off as just play partners, like rope partners, and then feelings happened. So
as they do.
Started, those darn feelings. And up until that point, I was like, I'm never dating poly again. And now I'm like, oh, here is this happening. So we were kind of talking about it, and I asked him, what issues, what concerns do you have about being with someone who's monoamorous? And his response was, I'm concerned that I might not be enough for you. And that was like this big light bulb went off, where I was like, wait, I thought maybe I wouldn't be enough for you, but you're worried about not being enough for me. And the concept of enough is bigger than all of this. And it's really about realizing that you don't have to be everything, and you can still be enough. And on the mono side, you can't make your partner be everything for you. I have to have other things that I like to do. He can't be my entire social life and the only support that I have. I have to be able to spread it out.
Right. I mean, I feel like that's good advice, even if you're in a monogamous relationship, is to not put everything on your partner.
So that's one of the, it might be a tangent, but I'm in a lot of poly spaces, and every so often you get those, what are they called? The evolved polyamorous.
Oh gosh.
The
About 6 months in, a year in, I think
yeah,
is usually when
the
people hit
enlightened
that point.
polyamorous.
Right.
Who, like, have a chip on their shoulder about everything that has ever had to do with
Jeez.
monogamy. Yes, there's a lot of toxicity in monogamous relationships. There's a lot of toxicity in polyamorous relationships. There's a lot of toxicity in relationships. And
Right.
like, don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. Monogamy can work. It can be healthy. And most of the stuff that makes relationships work in a healthy way work no matter how many partners you're with.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the dirty little secret of the Multiamory podcast. When people are like, but don't you eventually
It's for
you run out
everyone.
of stuff to talk about? And we're like, no, because relationships are just relationships.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because talking about relationships is recession proof, as it turns out.
Do you know the way that I found your podcast was when I thought I wanted to like start a podcast, because I felt like there was this, like, I had things to say about polyamory, and I had been on a podcast before, and I was like, I want to start a new one. So I was doing research into other non-monogamy podcasts that were out there. I started listening to you guys, and I was like, oh no, they're already doing it. I don't have to do this.
Oh, shucks.
They're covering all the topics I would cover. They're saying the things that I would say. I'm just going to join their Patreon, and money I would have spent on stuff.
Wait, but now here you are. Maybe that was the long con to try to infiltrate the podcast. Oh, dang.
Exactly. It worked. Well done.
Work.
Before we continue with the rest of the interview, we wanted to take a quick break to talk about our Patreon, as well as some other ways that you can get involved in supporting this show and keeping it going. So we actually met Phoebe through our Patreon community, which is amazing. And the people in that community get to interact with her all the time and have been able to talk about some of these things more one-on-one with instant feedback, which is amazing. And we love being able to give back and support that community, and to encourage all of the things that people in our patron-only Facebook group and our patron-only discourse group are doing. So if you want to be part of that community, you can go to patreon.com/multiamory. And there you can pledge a certain amount each month to this show, and in exchange, you get to be part of this amazing community. At the $5 a month level and up, you get to be part of the secret Facebook group, and you can be part of our self-hosted private discourse group that we have on our site, where you can speak with other people about polyamory or relationship anarchy or monopoly or whatever it is, in a space where people know what you're talking about. And you can actually just be open and get the support that you need about those sorts of things. Also, at the $7 a month level, we have ad-free episodes, so you don't have to listen to us yammering on about all of this every week. And those also come out a day early for you on the your own private RSS feed that you get at the $7 a month level. And at $9, we have a monthly video discussion group, which is also awesome. That happens, like we said, once a month, and is a really cool way to communicate more like one-on-one, face-to-face with a lot of the amazing people in this community.
And our sponsor for this week is adamandeve.com, our lovely, lovely, amazing Adam and Eve people that we enjoy and have been around for years. Yeah, they're like our oldest sponsor. It's great. Yes. No, but if you use our promo code MULTI, M-U-L-T-I, at checkout, then you will get a free gift, which is usually a sex swing. And then also free shipping and 50% off almost any item. And that promo code MULTI is reusable, so you can use it in multiple transactions, which is awesome. So
multiple
as many times
sexual
as you want.
Transactions.
Yes.
Yes, I mean, if you want, yes. Sexy transactions. So yes, again, we also get a little kickback for that. So if you want to help us out and get some sexy stuff, then go to adamandeve.com and use our promo code MULTI at checkout.
And if you really don't want to toss any money our way, I guess I don't blame you. I know how it is. But you can still support our show. Regardless, you can go to iTunes or Apple Podcasts or Stitcher or wherever it is that you get your podcasts and just take a moment to leave us a review. It should only take you a couple minutes. It really does help us a lot. It helps us to show up higher in search results. It helps more people to find this show. And also it helps more people to understand what it is that is valuable in this show? You know, what kind of thing can they expect to gain from listening to this podcast? So again, go to wherever you get your podcast, write us a review. If you don't even have a couple minutes to write out a review, you can just leave us a rating on iTunes. That's also super easy. So again, go to iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, wherever it is that'll let you leave a review or a rating.
Yeah, you can actually only do that on Stitcher or on iTunes or Apple Podcasts.
Fine. If you're listening to us on Spotify, then just like send us some positive vibes or something, I guess.
Or
But
like go to
else,
Stitcher and write the review.
Okay. Everywhere else, please write us a review. Thank you.
And then lastly, before we get back to the show, we mentioned this a little bit last week, but we just wanted to give another quick plug for our new podcast that just launched last week called Drunk Bible Study, which is totally unrelated to any of the stuff that we're talking about here, and instead is just a fun show where the three of us are working our way ever so slowly through reading every single word of the Bible together, which for Emily is the first time hearing a lot of these stories ever. Being raised totally atheist. So it's really fun getting to share those stories with Emily, as well as just actually reading all this thing that none of us have actually read every word of before. Anyway, it's a lot of fun. And if you want some goofs and hanging out with us, take a moment to find Drunk Bible Study at drunkbiblestudy.com, or you can search us in Apple Podcasts or iTunes or Stitcher or Google Play or, you know, all the places where you listen to podcasts.
Well, gosh, no, it's so interesting. Like, I feel like it's such a fine line for people. And I know I definitely get this with a lot of clients who come to me, like maybe clients who are struggling with their partner wanting to open up, or struggling with having fallen in love with a polyamorous person, or the flip side, a polyamorous person struggling with having fallen in love with a monoamorous person. And it is such a fine line between, you know, is this like, I have the self-efficacy to see myself someday being okay and feeling fulfilled and feeling good and feeling peaceful with this, versus I just need to try, you know, I'm trying to find strategies, every possible strategy to just keep my head above water and just tolerate and to be able to grit my teeth. You know, it's kind of like I need to find strategies to get rid of the jaw pain so I can grit my teeth for longer sometimes. And it's, I don't know. It's so... It's hard.
Yeah, I definitely think going into a relationship that's with someone who's already established as polyamorous is a lot easier, I would think, than having a monogamous relationship that's opening up for the first time.
Yeah.
That's having to end an existing relationship the way it was,
right,
and start a brand new one. But you're carrying a lot of baggage over into it where you've got your like shortcuts already. When you're starting a new relationship with someone new, you're kind of inventing it together, but when you're changing an existing one, I think it's just a lot trickier. But the thing about non-monogamy, it forces you to do the self-work. It forces you, like, you don't have to do it in a monogamous relationship because you don't have to deal with jealousy maybe so much. But jealousy, I say, is a mask that's worn by insecurity and fear. Like, jealousy by itself isn't a thing. It's just the way you're reacting to fear and insecurity, and having to dig into those things. That's the part you have to do that's uncomfortable. But if you're just trying to like grit your teeth and get through it, you're not doing the work to understand it and overcome it. You're just trying to get through it. So like, I'm just going to hold my breath and hope that when I come up for air, the air is going to be sweet. But the air is going to be the same. You have to learn how to adapt. And that's really difficult to do. And I think that's the difference between a monopoly relationship that is going to eventually find their way towards that happy acceptance place, and the ones that are just going to constantly struggle.
Well, gosh, I mean, again, I don't think that's necessarily unique to monopoly, because I know myself in my own polyamorous journey, I've been in relationships in the past where instead of doing the self-work, I've done I just need to figure out how to grit my teeth, and I need to like just meditate every single day for 2 hours to just try to get through this and try to endure it, rather than trying to actually, you know, go through it and actually sink into it and actually see what's there. So I don't know. I guess that is a human thing. The lengths that we'll go to not have to look at ourselves, really.
I remember there was this one post somebody had posted in the Poly plus Mono group once, and she was She was the mono wife to it was a monogamous marriage that had opened up where the husband had gone on to be polyamorous and had other partners, and she was not, and she struggled with it. And about the year mark from when they had opened up their relationship, she kind of had this big epiphany and wrote this blog post about her journey, about all the different rules that they had in the beginning. And there were all these, he couldn't do this and he couldn't do that. And that over time, as it started to become like a new normal, and she let go of some of the hangups that she had been having, the fear, the insecurity about the other partners and all of that stuff, she ended up realizing that she had a lot of free time to pursue her interests that she had not had time to pursue before. She like learned a lot about herself, and in the end, she actually ended up starting to date somebody else, and now they're in a poly relationship. But not everybody is going to end up that way. But it took her about a year to get to that point of acceptance. So it's not something that can happen overnight.
Right.
I mean, it took me 3 different attempts at polyamory before I found the right fit. So it's definitely not an overnight thing.
Right.
Sorry, it just made me think just real quick. I remember years ago, but before I had ever been polyamorous or even heard of that term, in an unrelated conversation about relationships, I was talking with some people who were older than me and knew more about the world or whatever. But one of them was talking about, I think she was talking about, I don't remember if it was anecdotal evidence or it was some study that she'd read about, but where they found that when men were in relationships, their careers tended to get better, and when women were in relationships, it tended to be the opposite. The idea being that stereotypically for the women, it's like all your effort that was going into your work now goes into your relationship, and for the man, all the work that was going into trying to date goes into your work. And it was interesting when she told me this, because my reaction right away was like, I feel like I'm the opposite. Like, I feel like during times when I'm single, I feel like I'm so much more productive and get a lot more done. So maybe I fall more onto the woman side of that. And I think, sure, people could be either way. But I think what you bring up is really interesting, that idea of just whether we're in a relationship or not, still prioritizing the other things that we do, like our work or our creative endeavors or, whatever else it is that matters to us, and not just saying, well, now I'm in a relationship and society's told me that should be more important to me than anything else. And so I'm going to give up on all these things or start sacrificing the energy and time I spent on other things that fulfill me because I should be able to get it all from this one thing.
Yeah, I think that was a big one for me when I realized how laced with like romanticism the concept of I don't know who I am without you. And, like, I'm sitting there now, like on this side of my life going, I don't ever want to say those words again. I want to know exactly who I am with or without you. I know who I am. I need to maintain who Fee is. And then other people can add to that. I had a therapist a long time ago who tried to explain this to me before I really understood what codependency was. It was the pizza analogy. And she said, you need to be a basic pizza. Like you need to be the crust and the cheese and the sauce. Like the basic pizza exists. People that come into your life are the toppings, but you take the toppings away, you're still a pizza.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Well, it just makes me kind of hungry. So, okay, I'm going to ask a question that I feel like I get from clients frequently, and I've kind of puzzled over this myself. So I feel like people who are in non-traditional relationships often butt up against this perception that surely one partner's taking advantage of the other, especially women who are dating men, that it's always that perception of oh, there's no way that you could be okay with this. He's a horn dog who's just trying to screw you over. And of course, in my life, it's really easy to just rely on no, I'm doing this too. I'm dating all these people. In most of my relationships, I'm the one who's kind of pushing this thing. In the past, I'm the one who's pushed for an open relationship. But if you're proactively choosing to remain monogamous while your partner is not, that seems like it makes it a lot harder to talk to people about it or to deal with people's perceptions of that. And like, I have a partner right now where he doesn't identify as monogamous, but he tends to like maybe date casually. But since we started dating, he hasn't really hardcore pursued any serious emotionally intense relationships, and he's kind of happy with it being that way. And I've seen in his life him really struggling with people really pulling the like, oh, this, your partner's taking advantage of you, you're getting screwed over, stuff like that. And so have you found any good ways to talk about this for others who are questioning it, and particularly using that angle?
Yeah, there's a couple things. One is that I'm fairly unapologetic about my relationship and the way that it is and who I am about it. And I think that if you put out that feeling of, I'm not asking for your validation when I tell you about the thing that I'm doing, I'm just letting you know about the thing that I'm doing, they're less likely to try to pass the judgment. Like, their questions are actually questions and they're not leading questions. They're like, well, don't you feel this way? No, I don't feel that way. And that's it, you know? The thing that I used to love to, people would say, you know, I'm just worried that you're going to get hurt. And I'd sit there and be like, so are you saying that no monogamous man has ever hurt me? Because I'd like to run you through a list of my experience. Like, anybody can hurt me. You know, dating is the most risk-aware thing that we can possibly do. You're putting yourself out there. You're probably going to get hurt at some point. Being in any type of relationship doesn't entitle you to never having a bad day again.
Right.
You're going to have them. If you know that you're not being taken advantage of, then it really doesn't matter what other people think. And you have to just know it in yourself and not need to prove anything to them. Eventually, they're either going to believe you or they're going to get out of your life, because that's just how I roll.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
No, that is really so powerful, I think. But also so difficult at the same time to come to someone not seeking validation. Like, even if in the front of your mind you don't think that you are, there can still be these deeper emotional things. I used to have the lady that I used to go to for waxing, and I talk about this all the time, and she always would say things like, well, but you know, don't you feel like a side chick? And like, no. And I'm sitting there going like, no, I'm not a side of fries. Like, that's not how this works. And she asked something like, well, let's say he ever broke up with them and he was just with you. Would you still let him have? And I'm sitting there going, no, go back away. Would have let him have. He does what he does. It's like saying, would you let him have blue eyes? His eyes are blue. He is polyamorous. Like, understand this. So it's just a matter of reinforcing what you know and not letting people get those little digs in. They happen on the other side too. I hear digs about monogamy all the time, and it's just like, I don't want to hashtag not all monogamy here, but
gosh,
not all, just it's not, though it's not just, it's very simple. Just say, that's not the way I see it. That's not the way I do it.
Yeah. So I guess building upon what Dedeker was talking about of, kind of people saying, oh, you must be being taken advantage of or something like that. So, So in running the groups and writing the blogs and stuff that you've done, have you found any other sort of common myths or misconceptions that people have specifically about mono-poly relationships? And these could either be from the I'm from the monogamous world and I have these conceptions like the one Dedeker brought up, or even I come from the polyamorous world. These are the misconceptions I have about mono-poly relationships. Yeah.
So one misconception that happens rather frequently, specifically in the it's the poly plus mono group on Facebook, is that people think that it's like a conversion group. Like, we're going to teach mono people how to be poly. So
really?
Yeah. So people come in it's weird. I love the other mods in that group. It's a really great team. So one thing is that, and this is going to be the same misconceptions they have about polyamory in general. My parents had a lot of questions about my relationship with my metamors, which I'm happy to say is a wonderful relationship. They're my best friends. like they're all in my will. Like it's like real, right?
Oh, wow.
They had a lot of questions about like, you know, like without wanting, like my parents didn't really want to talk about sex, but like, what do you all do together? You know, like, is this happening all in the same room? Like, how does this work? So there's just a lot of questions people tend to have about how the romantic parts of the relationships work. Like, where's the line between friendship and romance and all of that stuff? There are a lot of people who have, you know, like the one penis policy types of things, like where you have people who are in mono poly relationships, but like the mono person isn't mono by choice.
Oh, I see. They're kind of
yeah.
being forced to be monogamous, you mean?
Yeah, like it's like you can be polyamorous with other women, but not men. You know, it's like.
And you're not actually interested in women, so then
so then ta-da!
You basically
it's like,
forced me,
exactly.
Yeah.
I think most of the rest of the things, it just has a lot to do with people assume that I'm jealous. They want to know how I handle jealousy. You know, don't you get jealous? Doesn't it bother you? No, it doesn't bother me. I get envious sometimes, and there's for me a big difference. You know, envy being I want that thing too, and jealousy being I want that and I don't want them to have it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you know, if my boyfriend goes out with his partner to a really, really nice restaurant, and I'm like, you know, I feel like food compersion for them. Like I get really excited for them that they're having this amazing meal, but at the same time, like I wish I were at that restaurant with him.
Right.
You know, but that doesn't mean that I can't go to that restaurant with him next week. Like it's not. There's nothing that I can't have in my relationship that I want. I don't even want to wake up to him every day. Like sometimes I like want to wear ugly pajamas and fart, you know, like I just, you know, like it just, sometimes I want to binge watch Star Trek and like eat on the sofa. Like I don't do that stuff with him. Those are my things that I do on my own. So people just assume that like, oh my gosh, if your boyfriend's not there to entertain you, what do you do? Whatever I want is the answer.
I love that too, for when people post about, oh, you know, we're newly polyamorous and my partner's going on a date for the first time. I'm like, I know this is scary right now, but trust me, like you're gonna love this.
It so much.
Like, I look so forward to just finally I can I can watch
whatever I want. I want to eat like gross food and scratch myself and do whatever I want. Like I just want to be human for a minute.
Exactly.
Which, I mean, I can do that with him, but like, why? I have all this free time to do it without him, so it's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so you wrote a blog post called "The Honesty Exchange," and I'm gonna be honest. I sent this blog post to like a cajillion of my clients, and I only realized last week that you were the one who wrote it. Like
we talked about it on a podcast.
Exactly. No, like
did we? Oh wow.
And I feel so bad that we didn't give you credit earlier because it blew my mind. I was like, how did I miss? Like I've looked at the site. I've looked where your name is there on the site, and I just didn't even like just block that out. Didn't even realize. So I guess first of all, thank you for writing such an amazing, fantastic, useful piece that's out there that I found so useful to forward to people. So I guess for all of our listeners out there who don't want to read a blog piece, can you briefly sum up the concept of the honesty exchange?
Yeah. So this came up with a lot of people say, you know, I just want, you know, you should have just been honest. I just want honesty. But there's things about honesty that if you want honesty from your partners, you have to be willing to accept it graciously when you hear something you don't want to hear. So it's like if, you know, if I ask my partner, I'm trying to think of something like silly, like, did you like that meal I made for you last night? Do I want him to lie to me? Because I've asked him to be honest. Like I've said, you know, did you like that steak or whatever it was that I made? You know, I didn't make steak, but you know, did you like that meal I made last night? You know, be honest. And if he tells me I hated it, like that's really going to hurt my feelings, but I asked him to be honest, right? So this is kind of a two-part thing where part of it is be diplomatic when you're being honest. Instead of I hated it, you can say, well, it wasn't really the way I would have prepared it, or, you know, maybe next time you could try something different. The other thing is when someone then gives you feedback that's not exactly what you wanted to hear, thank them for being honest. Like, that's the only answer you have to give. Thank you for being honest. Like in that blog post I said, there's like that, I think it was either Twix. I think it was a Twix commercial.
Wait, which Twix commercial?
Okay.
Twix?
So there, I think it was a Twix commercial where like someone is asked a question and they're like stumped for the answer, and so they shove a Twix in their mouth and like gives them a minute to think of the answer.
Yeah.
So for me, saying thank you for being honest or thank you for your honesty is that Twix I just shoved in my mouth to like give me a minute to think about how I want to respond to this.
I say, like, need a minute. Yeah, I think I've seen that. I thought it was Snickers, but
So that's like, if you don't know what to say and you just feel like all these emotions burbling up, just say thank you for your honesty. And that's like one part of it. And the other part of it is, of course, being honest. The thing is that the more you show people that they can be honest with you and you're not going to fly off the handle, the more likely they are to trust you with continued honesty as things progress.
Yeah.
That they're not going to be afraid to say something to you because, oh, you're having a bad day or this or that. And the next thing you know, it's been 3 weeks and they haven't had this difficult conversation with you and now it's a lie.
Yeah. I've definitely been on both sides of that for sure. That's the receiving honesty graciously part is so interesting to me because I find when I talk to people about it, there's definitely kind of this, I think there's this assumption that we get from culture that, you know, if my partner tells me something that I don't want to hear, like, it's my right to be able to unload my emotions in that moment onto them. Like they need, like, it's my right for them to hear exactly how it made me feel. And it's kind of a fine line because it's kind of like, well, it's not that that you want to tell people like, no, you need to bottle up all your emotion and your reaction and your partner and never tell your partner about it. But it's the difference between like hearing something that you don't want to hear and then unloading how upset you are about it versus hearing something you don't want to hear, saying, thank you for your honesty. I'm going to take a 20-minute walk, you know, and then coming back. And then maybe you can tell your partner like, wow, it was a little rough for me to hear that at first. And it brought up these feelings. But now that I've taken a 20-minute walk, I have these thoughts about it, that it is kind of this fine thing of getting people to understand that it's not about, you don't get to have any reaction to honesty, but it's, again, I think it is, just kind of adding that sense of diplomacy, I guess, on both sides.
Yeah,
at least that's
it is. You totally get to have your reaction. Have your reaction, but be mindful that the way you react might inform how they approach you in the future. And do you want to set a standard where they're afraid to be honest with you because they're going to upset you so much that it's going to cause a big fight? Like maybe the 20-minute walk is a better way to go about it. You can still share your feelings. You can still have them, like have all the feelings you want to have, but think about how you want to be seen, I guess.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
Well, this has been a ton of amazing stuff. So just in closing here, could you give us, like, what are some resources that you would recommend to people who are trying to make monopoly work?
Okay, the big one that I would say is if you're on Facebook, there is a poly plus mono relationships group. It's a supportive group. It's a really great group. It was kind of like my entry into like finding my people. My blog, you should read that. I don't know that there's a whole lot else out there right now. There are other people starting to get into the space, and it's really exciting to see more people talking about monopoly. But those are the two big ones. With the Facebook group, know that particular group is private, not secret, which means if you're using your real Facebook account, like, other people can see that you're in it. We do not have any problem with people creating alternate accounts to join the group. So you can always have that as an option if you're worried about your privacy or being outed or anything like that.
Great. And then I guess just where can people find more of your stuff, right? Like where can they find your blog and links to all of your many communities and things that you're involved with?
So you can follow my blog at polyamoring.blog. I've just created a Facebook page for polyamoring, so I can be followed now because I try to keep my Phoebe Phillips page is kind of more personal, and I don't want to be so public on that.
Right.
Twitter, that fee, or polyamoring, just follow polyamoring and you can reach all the other ones. It's a lot easier than writing down all these other things.
Perfect. And we'll have some links to that in our show notes as well.
Yeah.
Excellent.
All right. Thank
For
you
sure.
so much for joining us, Phoebe. This has been just fantastic. Like so much
Yeah,
good
it's really
information.
great.
We're so glad that we finally got to have you on the show and your dream of having the podcast
Yay!
came true.
I did it.
Everything is
You believe it and you
well
receive
done.
it. You can achieve it.
Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your travels. And then when you get back, you're around the corner, so we can go get
Yes.
coffee or something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
perfect.
Yeah.
All
Thank
right.
you. If you want to get in touch with us, send an email to info@multiamory.com or send us a message on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. You can also leave us a voicemail at 678-MULTI-05, or you can leave us a voice message on Facebook. To support our show and to join our private Facebook community or discourse community, go to patreon.com/multiamory. Multiamory is created and produced by Jase Lindgren, Emily Matlack, and me, Dedeker Winston. Our episodes are edited by Mauricio. Our social media wizard is Will McMillan. Our theme song is Forms I Know I Did by Josh and Anand from the Fractal Cave EP. The full transcript is available on this episode's page on multiamory.com.
Hey, this is Dan Savage from the Savage Lovecast and Savage Love. You're listening to a Swing Set podcast at Swing Set FM.